Hello and a very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now that the world's biggest shopping festivals have come to a close, 11/11 principally in Asia, and Black Friday and Cyber Monday in the States and Europe and Latin America, now is a really good time to take a pause and look back and reflect on some of the highlights and the implications for retail right across the globe, and that's what we're going to be doing in the next 50 minutes or so. I'm David Roth from WPP, and I'm the co-host for this webinar, and I'm delighted that our other co-host is the legendary Beth Ann Canning-Cowell, the Global CEO of VMLY&R Commerce and the CEO of VMLY&R in New York. Beth Ann, a very, very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, David. Warm welcome to you, and thank you for having me and our other guests.
Well, Beth Ann and I are going to be joined at different parts of this webinar by a wealth of retail and commerce experience from a number of places right across the world. And our expert guests will be Tyler Murray, the US CEO of VMLY&R Commerce, Michelle Whelan, the CEO of VMLY&R Commerce the UK and the co-CEO of VMLY&R UK. We have Ignacio Mays, the Insights Manager, Strategy and Innovation at BAV. We have Karina Blas, who is the E-commerce Director of VMLY&R Commerce in Brazil and LATAM, and Daniela Stone, the Senior Manager for Global Partnerships and Business Development of Site. And we'll be hearing from them during the course of our webinar. Now, I don't know, Beth Ann, 16 years of 11/11. This is clearly a key trading period right around the world. You have tremendous experience in working both on the resale side and for brands. Does this period of the year send tingles down your spine?
In a good way, it does. Almost like an athlete ready to go on the field and crush and win whatever it is ahead of us. I just think it's amazing how the period continues to be make it, break it moment for many retailers and brands. It's a must-win time of year, and I think what we're doing right now, what we're seeing out there in terms of what's being offered to rally consumers. And I guess for the right reasons, to lure them in for the right reasons, from all definitions of value, is what gets me super excited, and many of the clients that we're working with through this period.
Do you think we're going to see a number of things this year that will be sort of different or very different from last year? Each year there's winners and the losers, and sometimes it's quite difficult to predict which is going to be which.
Very much so. And in fact, some on my own list where I was super impressed personally, and then we saw that bear out in our data, people that we thought were winners and really did have a strong year are really hurting through execution this year. And we'll get into that a little bit. But one example of that is Best Buy, where they had tremendous sort of omni-channel execution through the entire pandemic. And this year has been troubling for them. I haven't seen all of their sales numbers yet, but from an execution standpoint, there's been a number of things that have been impacting their ability to keep up with demand and to be on top of their business. So it really does test both retailers and manufacturers. And but I think the most exciting thing is, again, I still use kind of the measurement of pandemic time period. Last year you saw that boost and a little bit of return to physical shopping, but this year now the balance of and the expectation around being able to truly offer an omni-channel experience is what I see coming through the strongest. And then every dimension of commerce. We talk about the commerce revolution, but you are seeing every dimension of commerce play out right now, which is so exciting.
Well, it is. It's exciting and it's very scary. The gun has been fired, and we will see what's going to happen over the course of this, I suppose, the second and third period of the holiday season. And they're the themes really that we're going to be exploring today. Well, we'd also like to welcome all of our clients and our colleagues from right across the world, those joining via the web or on the live stream on the VMLY&R Commerce LinkedIn site, or those watching in our own BAV interactive experience apps where this is being streamed directly into the live screening rooms Now, wherever you are connected, a very, very warm welcome to you all. Well, I'm now delighted to be able to introduce our first guest, Ignacio Mays, the Insights Manager for Strategy and Innovation of BAV. BAV is the WPP proprietary brand analytics platform with 16 billion points of brand data. With all that data, Ignacio, what insights can you derive from this that will help us understand the holiday season and consumers' mindsets?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here. Innovation is truly the lifeblood of retail, and I think BAV continues to prove that as we collect more and more data on brands around the world. For example, in the Chinese mass merchandiser space, between 2020 and 2023, innovation has become 147% more important in driving differentiation in the category, and 8 times more important in driving top preference. So it's not surprised that China seems to be leading the way in retail innovation, and it's very exciting to see how this trend is spreading around the world.
Now, with the cost of living pressures facing consumers right across the globe, how is value being seen, and how important do you think value will be to consumers in their decision-making process this holiday season?
Well, during inflationary times, it can be tough on consumers, and brands that can deliver on greater value tend to see some benefits that might not apply during times of relative stability. So in the US, for example, the makeup of the top 10% most loved brands in the market have become over 20% more good value, associated with good value, since 2019. And while the UK, for example, has seen less of an increase, the most loved brands there have still improved by 10% in their association with good value in the past year alone. So it's important, therefore, for brands to continue delivering more value while not diminishing the pricing power that a strong brand commands.
Now, BAV also looks at countries as brands and the attitude of citizens in those countries. How does that piece of data and those analytics help us grow our understanding, Ignacio?
Yeah, so these trends track with the results of our latest 2023-2024 Best Countries report, in which we asked over 17,000 people around the world about their perceptions on 87 countries and 50 cities and brands, as well as global personal opinions. And that's where we're going to focus right now. In fact, 83% of respondents around the world believe that inflation will continue to get worse. However, this is not universally the same. There's some variation across countries. So, for example, in Denmark or Indonesia, it's only about 70% of respondents, while in other countries like South Africa or Norway, it can go up to 92%.
But overall, right across the world, inflation is clearly something that is worrying consumers. And clearly will impact their both real disposable income and the disposable income that they'd be prepared to spend.
Definitely, and that's why brands need to keep in mind that need to drive and deliver value to consumers, but at the same time not lose the amazing power that strong brands can have in terms of, like driving preference and driving pricing power in the marketplace.
Great. Well, how can people get hold of both the BAV data and also the Best Countries data?
Well, BAV data is available for everyone at WPP at the Fount, our platform, and then the Best Countries data is actually available for everyone to view and explore in full VR glory through our Best Countries app, which is available in all the app stores that you can download. And we will give you the link to the downloads at the end of the webinar.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Ignacio Mays from BAV. Thank you very much indeed for your insights. Thank
you very much. Happy to be here.
Well, you're watching the Holiday Wrap broadcast, co-hosted by me, David Roth, from London, and Beth Ann Kaminkow in New York.
Hello. So I'm excited to get into North America and what we saw during the US shopping season. I know that we talked about it in terms of 11.11's version, but in actuality, I think in the US now, 11.11 starts for everybody. I mean, I think it kicks off this now prolonged shopping season that goes from 11.11. I think people are really understanding a kickoff moment, and also shopping many of the brands that started 11.11 from Alibaba, and now you see a lot of the other Chinese brands, AliExpress, Shein, and others coming into other markets around the world, including the U.S. And then you get into Black Friday, and you get into Cyber Monday, and then you get into everything that leads into the holiday season. So I would like to invite up with me now to join me in this conversation, Tyler Murray, who is our U.S. CEO of VMLY&R Commerce. And he has been covering the pre-holiday circuit leading up to this, talking to many press, many clients, and I know readying himself for game day competition as well here. And I'd love to get your views. I mean, I know that we follow and we think about commerce starting with creativity, but there has been a lot of creativity that you see showing up here from sort of the razzle dazzle, shoppertainment, commerce that I know Walmart did. And we'd love to get your thoughts, maybe kicking off there and in what you're seeing and the changes taking place right now from a commerce standpoint during this holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, thank you, Beth Ann, so much for inviting me to come join you and talk about this exciting time period. I think that this was going to be an interesting holiday coming into it. There was a lot of experts saying this is probably going to be a more muted holiday shopping period. And the reason for it is, if you look at it from a data standpoint, it all points to that it would be, right? You've got a higher inflationary environment. Consumer confidence is starting to wane. Recessionary fear is starting to come up. Lower discretionary dollars. So you would think that this would not be such a strong holiday shopping season, but that turned out to totally not be true. You know, brick and mortar were up 4.6%. Online mobile purchases were up significantly. So consumers really came out and spent in a really big way. I think what that kind of entails of if you kind of unpack why that is it was one stat that I found that was really fascinating, is that flexible payment was up 47%, which is massive. And so that means that consumers really don't have the dollars to spend on this occasion, but they're doing it anyway. So the question is probably why. And I think that that's more of a psychological question. Seeing research that we've done and Kantar has done, there's been some thoughts around that consumers are almost in this poly-crisis mode where they've experienced so much social stress over the past, 5-6 years, pandemic and onwards, that there's almost this sense of retail therapy that needs to come out into the marketplace. And so even though consumers don't really have the funds, that they're really investing in really big ways. And so to your point, retailers like Walmart doing fun and more joyous marketing, like what they did if people haven't seen it, of their commerce of creating, it's like 25, 27 different.
Tyler's frozen for me, so I'll kind of pick up there. I think it is for others as well, in terms of the episodic way that they made shoppable content available for people. And I think we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing a content play kind of get woven into how we're thinking about, shoppable content and bringing product to people, but in ways that it was much more entertaining. I think you're back with us, Tyler. You froze there for a moment, so I was just finishing your sentence.
Geez. Okay, sorry.
All good.
Yeah, I don't know where it left off, but yeah, it's basically, with some. Did I talk about the Walmart piece? Yeah. Yep. So I think it's a good example of how retailers can bring joy to consumers' lives and make shopping fun again. And consumers are starting to really respond to that right now.
You and I have always talked about that in terms of even people's well-being. Sometimes we think of shopping as very frivolous, but in actuality, there's something to being able to give to yourself and give to others, and just to have a sense of spend as value in our lives that is an extension of our identities and our sense of well-being. So there's a part of that's probably good. The debt piece of that is a bit scary, and I'm sure we'll see that play out as we get into Q1 with our clients. But I do want to continue on this theme of, because I really like the idea of sort of joy and fun. And we're seeing that now, the capability expand with the retailers that we're working with, and the way our manufacturers are working to leverage social commerce and the ability to communicate and reach people with messaging in new ways and make the content shoppable in new ways. So I'd love to get your perspectives on what you see changing there. And when I bring it back to 11/11, I mean, much of what we used to see there was almost like a shopping frenzy that would take place. This gamification and the sense that people were almost so caught up in the game that they lost sense sometimes of what they were purchasing and why they were purchasing it, and even if the value was real. So how are you seeing that play out in like things like TikTok and some of these social platforms?
Yeah, it's interesting because TikTok, this is the first year where they have TikTok Shop, and which is huge in other markets, especially Asian markets. They've not released their sales data yet, so we'll get that at the end of the month. So that'll be fascinating to see how did that really play out. I will say I think it's still in its infancy. I think it will quickly mature, as we've seen. TikTok is a highly maturing platform. So I think with brands, what they need to do differently when we start thinking about social is quantity matters. It's not just about quality. It's you have to shift your thinking about, I need to create a few big assets into how do I keep a steady pulse of content streaming into these platforms on a regular basis, talking to consumers directly, and starting to have one-on-one dialogues with them. It's really a new marketing model that most manufacturers are not set up to go and work in. So it'll be interesting to see the sales results of TikTok, and if they are starting to be strong and influential, that may have a huge impact for how we go to market next year.
So that would be a prediction that you would have then for something that we may see continue in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've kind of trained behavior right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what's interesting too with what Amazon did on a slightly separate note of how they did their Black Friday NFL broadcast, where they opened that up to non-Prime users. Anybody could watch the game, but then in the game they had almost a lot of shoppable content through QR codes. So it's your earlier point. We just continue to see that shopping is not a binary one channel endeavor anymore. It is highly proliferated, and consumers are definitely channel surfing. And it's interesting too, even though you see consumers are shopping earlier and earlier, still the majority of purchases are still happening in that November, December timeframe, which means that consumers are still going to always be highly impulsive. And so you need to make sure that that's part of your plans, is how do you win those impulsive purchases all the way up until the end of December.
Yep. Game day still matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much, Tyler. This was really useful to hear what you're seeing. And now we get to take a look at some exclusive content that David had a direct interview with Tmall executive in Europe. So over to that. Listen.
Well, we recently held a 60 minutes Packed with Insights webinar, which will be available for you on the resource centres. With Roland Palmer, the Alibaba General Manager in Europe, Zarina Kanji from Tmall Global, and Joanna Zhou from retailer Holland & Barrett. Let us take a little look at some of the insights from that, but please do watch the whole thing at your leisure a little bit later on.
If we look at last year, so 2022, British firms alone sold £3.7 billion of products to China via Alibaba, which, compared back to 2019, is a growth of 54%. And if you take it broader, which the study did, and look at all of the member countries of the EU, European exports to China via Alibaba last year hit a tremendous number of 32 billion euros. During the 11/11 period, Lazada saw the kind of excitement that we're used to seeing in China. So it's much more alive than 11/11 is in Europe. And I think even in the first hour, the opening hour versus a regular day was factor 63 in terms of uplift, I understand, from the team. So certainly it's a big phenomenon in Southeast Asia as well.
There is no perfect way to do 11/11. Every year there are new technologies, there are new innovations, there are new requirements and demands from the consumers. So done is better than perfect, I think, with 11/11.
Alibaba is one of the most important platform where you will start to build your brand home, demonstrate who you are, showcase your brand, and tell the stories. I mean, well, there will be other channels, there'll be influencers that we work with to develop our ecosystem in China. where Alibaba, our Tmall flagship store, being the center of everything. And then we have, other channels built onto it. And that kind of built up a whole ecosystem in terms of our strategies on channel, on product, on who we work with, and on what our brand stands for. And on top of that, AI is not just about very functional, just what would you like to buy today? What is your problem? There's also the element of gamification in there. So during the past Double 11, our AI live stream host, once you enter, we call it the live stream room. You got games coming through, you got this elf, you got this animated, I can come into, because you can play with technology, there's no boundary, right? So that make it really more interesting and fun and engaging. And Alibaba, as a platform, is always very good at innovation and bring those gaming elements into this commercial element.
Well, next up we have Daniela Stone, who is the Senior Manager of Global Partnerships and Business Development at Site. Daniela, very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me, David.
Well, I'd like to start with AI, as been mentioned a number of times already. What is visual search, and how does it help both consumers and web retailers?
Sure. So to start, Site is the leading visual AI platform for retail. So we're working with top retailers across fashion, jewelry, and home decor across the globe, helping them to use this visual AI to drive performance. So what actually is visual AI? Site's patented visual AI technology can scan images automatically, identify the objects within the images, as well as the individual attributes, much like the human eye is working. So in combination with generative AI, retailers are using Site's technology to scan these product images, extract detailed tags. So overall, we would say that Site solution has two main benefits. One, on the consumer end, this is enabling a much more seamless and enjoyable user experience. And two, on the back end. So for these retailers, it's allowing them to use our tech to streamline the merchandising process to create a more robust and organized product tag database. So overall, both conversion and revenue will be improving, as well as operational efficiency.
Well, product tagging is a bane of most retailers' lives. So if you can do that in a quick and visual way, I think that's very exciting. Your technology is deeply now ingrained into many of the large retailers and e-commerce sites around the world. So what did you see in aggregate across them over the Black Friday period?
So to start, we looked at a data pool of 4.2 million transactions, and this is from consumers using Site solutions. So from this, we've been able to identify a number of different trends and takeaways. So we break this down into our three core verticals: fashion, jewelry, and home decor. If we start with fashion, we saw that compared to Black Friday, Cyber Monday 2022, conversion and AOV remained pretty flat year on year. But what was by far the most interesting was the changes in desktop and mobile shopping. So during Black Friday, Cyber Monday 2023, 76% of fashion transactions took place on mobile devices. Whilst this is an extremely high and significant figure, it's actually lower than the 81% of fashion shoppers who use their mobile devices for transactions throughout the rest of the year. What is this actually telling us? This indicates that the consumers came very, very prepared for their Black Friday shopping. They sat down to a dedicated shopping session on their desktop rather than just swiping impulsively on their phones, because as we know in this economy, every dollar spent needs to be well thought out.
Sure. And what does that say, or what can you also glean and learn about other fashion categories as well?
Sure. So what was interesting within our AI-powered product tags, what we actually noticed was an overwhelming trend towards the purchase of basics. So for example, long sleeve shirts, popular colors were black and white. Cotton was by far the most popular fabric. And overall, it was the casual styles which reigned. So again, this is giving a nod to this practical focus and budget conscious shopper.
Okay, let's move on to another sector that you cover. What about jewellery?
So jewelry was the only vertical where we saw an increase in average order value compared to last year. So this year, jewelry shoppers spend on average around 8% more than they were spending last year. This is likely related to the fact that many of our shoppers are waiting for the big holiday sales to purchase expensive jewelry to then gift to their loved ones over the holiday season.
Many people are going to get engaged over this New Year period, clearly.
Only hope.
Now, those people that know me know that I'm a ex-retailer, in particular in the home improvement sector. So when any of this data comes out, I take a very keen interest in home decor. What did you see in that sector?
Sure. So for home decor, it was all about accessories. So with average order value down by 5%, it was no surprise that our product tag data identified the smaller ticket items as the best sellers. So for example, throws, pillows, bedding, mirrors, and rugs. These products all indicate that the shoppers are waiting to make the larger furniture purchases. And at the moment, they're spending their disposable income trying to beautify their rooms that they already have. So in terms of the difference.
What implications does all of this have, do you think, for the rest of the holiday period?
So I think it's certainly safe to say that we're seeing this practical, pre-planned, budget-conscious shopper overall on the holiday season. But not only are the reports showing that there was also a level of disappointment in the amount of discounting, which was on average around 30%. So bearing this in mind, I would say that there's 4 ways that key retailers can play into this. One, I would say, is the budget angle. So retailers need to be continually following up with price drop notifications and definitely offering several payment methods such as buy now, pay later. 2, I would say the research consideration angle. So we know that reviews and user-generated content are extremely important. And 3rd, I would say playing up on practicality, making sure the products are appealing as possible, bundling basics, offering convenience. And finally, in previous years, it's been mobile, mobile, mobile. And this year, we really needed to remind ourselves to not forget about the desktop. With fewer transactions taking place on desktop across the board, this is where the higher value purchases are actually coming from.
Well, that's been fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. It's always nice to get some hard data so soon. I mean, I think it's indicative of how competitive this holiday period is going to be if the average discount was around 30% and most consumers were thinking, well, that's not a particularly good deal. Well, Daniela Stone, the Senior Product Manager for Global Partnerships and Business Development at Site, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
And I'm excited now to move to another part of the world, and I'm sure we'll come back to London and the UK, Europe take from Michelle Whelan. But as we look to LATAM, it's an interesting market because we've seen such an explosion of e-commerce there. Sales continue to expand even as consumers are very price sensitive and very much watching their wallets and their pockets. But as predicted, the growth for this year in e-commerce was 14.3%. And we see it continuing as a trend up until at least 2027. So each year there's going to be just continued growth in the e-commerce space. So I'm excited to bring on with me Karina Blas, e-commerce director located in Brazil, the largest commerce market in Latin America. And I know Singles Day is also making a huge impact in Brazil, as is things like Black Friday. So we're actually calling it these names in Latin America. So I'm very fascinated by that and want to understand, like, how is that translating? How are people identifying with these sort of shopping holidays? And do we see this kind of trend continuing in terms of both everything from the e-commerce side of the house, but also are you seeing physical shopping return as well, Karina, in Latin America?
Yes, Bethan, and thanks to this invite, and I'm very glad to have all of you watching here. So talking a little bit about Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So yes, Black Friday is increasing in the region along the years. Of course, that it's a very important date when we think about Brazil, for example. But in the rest of the other countries, for example, Colombia, Mexico, and Chile, the events happens, but more in a more biggest marketplaces and players like Amazon, Mercado Libre, Liverpool. And in this year here in Brazil, we saw a decrease, 14% in decrease in Black Friday, but the projections was 12% compared for the last year. But regarding these expectations, Mercado Libre, Amazon, Shein, and Shopee gained traffic, and comparing with Americanas, Carrefour Brazil, and Pets and other players, they declined a little bit, unfortunately. But I talked with a lot of friends and saw a lot of reports here. And of course that we know that this projections and everything else, but the consumers, they are in a more conservative way in a moment with politicals and uncertainty. So of course that we are seeing some decrease in the market. And also as we are talking here, this month, November, it's a very important month with a lot of events as Singles Day, as you're saying, BFN and Cyber Monday, Buen Fin in Mexico. So this competes a lot with Black Friday. So of course that sometimes this could change some projections. But when we think about, for example, and products and sellings, of course that we saw a lot of electronics and appliances, but to combat high temperatures, so I'm in Rio, so it's very hot here today, we saw a lot of air conditioners, fan, and a lot of cooling appliance to guarantee these high temperatures, not just here in Brazil, but in all Latin America. And talking a little bit about Cyber Monday, Beth, and I think it's an event that we are gaining more relevance during the last years, but it's different around Latin America. So in Argentina, for example, this took place in 6th and 8th of November, so very in the beginning of the month. Here in Brazil and Mexico, in this last Monday, 27, and in Chile, for example, happens in October. So of course that we are in Chile, we saw an edition with outperformance, so very good news with more than 800 brands participating in the event. But it's not, I think, the most important event. I think it's all these moments and dates together to make the month of November with a big month of discounts and a good, how can I say, warm up for the holiday season.
So I have one more question for you, because I know we both have been watching with fascination and intrigue about how the China influence in the LATAM market is taking place. So whether that be because AliExpress and Shein are coming into the market in such a big way, or because of the representation of these brands on these holiday seasons, drawing from the success in China on Singles Day. Like, what do you think is accounting for this market taking priority in their minds? And do you see it really impacting how people are shopping?
Well, yes, these Chinese companies, of course, they are promoting a lot Singles Days in Latin America. It's not the most significant event until now. Black Friday, it's the most important when we think about Brazil and other countries. But AliExpress and Shein, for example, they demonstrate a unique strategies. So AliExpress, they did a huge campaign here in Brazil in this 11/11. So they prioritize this event. They provide more than 10 million discounts through the month with a very particular promotion. They are promoting 11/11 reais at 11:11 a.m. Discounts every day. So this is a new format, and of course they started with Fernanda Souza. It's a very important celebrity here in Brazil. They kicked off the event with inside the app. So they did a live event, broadcast everything, and did this also in out-of-home media spaces in São Paulo, in locations here in Brazil, in Rio, Copacabana. So they are really investing on that. So for AliExpress, Singles Day, it's a very important date here. And for example, in comparison, Shine, yes, they invest a lot to 11/11, but they promote these during the month with a more robust focus on Black Friday. So they use TV advertising and very big influencers to bring this news for the market, and they are investing a lot of that and doing a lot of coupons until November 25. So every company with their strategy, but of course that we are seeing a lot of investment on that. But it's more in this Chinese companies and abroad companies that is coming and trying to bring this important moment event for us here in Latin America.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that continues to shape the competition, your local competition and some of your really great retailers there as well. I'm looking forward already to what happens in 2024. Karina, thank you for your insights. Appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Well, the wonderful thing about doing a live program is the only thing that's expected is the unexpected. So let's see if we can reconnect back to Michelle.
Hi, David.
Are you with us? Fantastic.
Oh.
Well, I'm absolutely certain the wait is going to be worth it. So let me get in my first question early then. So how would you summarise the impact and the results of Black Friday in the UK this year?
So since 2020, the UK actually has been quite challenged from a retail perspective. And unlike what we heard Tyler talk about in the success of Black Friday in the US, we've had some success in the UK, but not to the same extent. So on what we call the Black Friday weekend itself, which was that 4-day period, we did see a 4% increase in Black Friday sales over that period. And then if you look at the whole period of the month of November, because we saw a very elongated Black Friday sales event in the UK, we're seeing a 4.4% increase in sales. So, talking to a lot of our retailer clients over the last couple of days, that's actually seen as a positive start to the, I'll use the word Christmas season shopping, holiday season shopping. And actually quite a lot of optimism as we come into the 1st of December tomorrow in terms of how momentum will continue to grow over the next 24 days.
Well, I think that's a considerable change, isn't it? Because there was certainly a lot of pessimism, specifically in the UK, running up to this period. So it's nice that we end November on an optimistic sort of note. And it is interesting
That's right.
that Black Friday sort of very much in the UK, and I think a lot of Europe as well, really was one day. And now it's certainly extended. So that, with the context of what you're seeing now, what are the trends within e-commerce, both sort of shopping and the way in which brands are deploying their digital demand generating media?
It's a great question, David, and I'm glad you used the word e-commerce because this Black Friday event has definitely become an e-commerce event in the UK. I was interested to hear Tyler talk about the physical retail sales uplift because what we're seeing is actually footfall into physical stores is down, but we are seeing some of the platforms like Meta, Tyler mentioned TikTok, Amazon, really drive that sales increase. But what we are seeing in trends in the way that our brands are behaving is over the month of November, there was a considerable ramp up towards Black Friday, where you could really feel the momentum of all of the messages that were being pushed out by brands. And then over that 4-day period, the Black Friday sales period, there was a real blitz around conversion. So we saw a shift away from more of the awareness, engagement, upper funnel media investment, really into a lot of retail media, a lot of conversion driving. And I think as we move into the next 24 days, I think we're going to see these pulses, as I keep calling them, of brands really leveraging. We heard Tyler talk about social commerce, but really leveraging some of those platforms to really own some of those blitz periods. Interestingly,
is retail media coming of age?
Yes, I think retail media is coming into its own, David. I think we're seeing a lot of brands switch their media investment from, as I said, more of the awareness engagement, upper funnel media into retail media to really make sure that we're driving that conversion.
Yeah, interesting. Now, clearly lots more brands are participating in Black Friday activity. After a while, it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you find it's very difficult not to compete on Black Friday if your competitors are. But there are a number of brands that we've seen, particularly this year, who've taken the sort of anti-Black Friday approach and using that in an interesting marketing way. So who are they and what have they done?
We have, and certainly brands that are trying to own unique value propositions in their specific categories. So 2 examples for you. One is a skincare brand called The Ordinary, and they used the month of November to actually coin a new word, that a marketing word that we hadn't heard before, called Slowvember. So slow as in slow, and Vember as the other part of November.
Well, I'm very glad there's a new phrase, so that's good.
A new phrase. We all needed
Black Friday hasn't been completely wasted then.
But the nice part of what they were, The Ordinary, trying to do from a storytelling point of view and exchange of values with their shoppers was really to say that when you're shopping skincare, it involves consideration. It's not a rush purchase. They want to give your skin attention. So actually rushing into a Black Friday sale doesn't meet the brand's values and the brand's propositions. But in doing that, they captured a lot of people's data, and now obviously over the next number of weeks have the opportunity to convert people. We know that the growth of sustainability has been really important for a lot of shoppers, and a fashion brand here in the UK, Me&M, have really focused on sustainability as their Black Friday message, saying we won't discount our clothing, we won't get involved in Black Friday sales because we believe that our clothes are of the best quality for the environment and are worth the money that people want to pay for them. So I think a very positive message from a brand that is actually endorsing people's decisions and endorsing the fact that people want to actually shop responsibly, and therefore they won't get involved in the flurry of discounting that happens over that period of time.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that movement grows. Finally, Michelle, when you look at the channels and the channel performance so far, who would you say are the winners?
Tyler mentioned we're still waiting on the TikTok results to come out, but TikTok definitely in the UK has had an enormous increase on activity and sales over the last number of days. And it's been driven by our younger generation shoppers, our Gen Z and our young millennial shoppers, who have actually contributed the most in the UK to that 4.4% increase. And many of them actually really took advantage of the highest percentage of sales deals that we've seen on any of the platforms over that period of time. And, one theory coming out of that could be that as we see Black Friday become much more of an e-commerce, social commerce shopping event, certainly here in the UK, is that now an event that more younger shoppers are engaging with, whilst more, mature shoppers are actually spreading it out over a much longer period of time. But brands even like John Lewis, Asda, which is a mainstream supermarket here in the UK, were all involved on TikTok and really pushing most of their media spend onto the platform to attract new shoppers to their brands.
Well, I can't wait until the numbers come out and see what impact TikTok really has made, not just in the UK, but around the world as well. Michelle Whelan, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, Bethan, I can't believe it. We've almost at the end of our allocated time. We could have gone on for a long time more. What's surprised you the most in this broadcast?
I think, first of all, the fact that it is, even though this is a globalized event now or time period, and the language is somewhat the same, no matter what market you're in, that the shopping behaviors is still so different. So I do find that fascinating. Absolutely, everybody's seeing a continuation of growth through e-commerce, but we really are seeing a lot of return to shopping physically during this time period too, or the combination of this omni. There was a promise of omni for a long time, and I think we're really seeing this sort of omni-channel execution start taking place for a lot of these retailers and for manufacturers. And I will just say one thing that I think is a driver from a North America standpoint of the physical is one, Gen Z loves the experience. And I think the novelty for them of coming into a physical experience that is booming and bustling and feels really igniting of kind of that shopping festive feeling. And I would say the other is the silver economy, because they have the discretionary income. So you're seeing people who are returning, feeling more comfortable sort of post COVID, getting back out there and wanting to shop for the gifts for their families, and they have the discretionary income to spend. So perhaps that's a little bit of what we're seeing there in the data. Maybe we can redefine the silver economy to the no hair economy. We've created a few takeaways for you, which we'll go through at speed. But of course, all of this will be available to you in the resource site, and we'll be sending you an email where you'll be able to get details of how to do that. So let's quickly whiz through a few of our main summary points. And I suppose the first is that Black is back. So Black Friday was bigger than ever, particularly in the US. But 11/11 was larger in GMV. November, I suppose, is now shades of grey. So Black Friday and 11/11 are no longer principally one-day events, as we've heard. They've on both sides of the world have very much been extended. And Black Friday is really very much a grey November as well. And retailers and brand owners need to create both strategies and tactics to really sustain consumers' interests over that entire period. That's no mean feat, is it, Beth Ann, to be able to sustain interest over that long period of time? No, just to that point, one thing that I've heard from a lot of our clients is they're getting dedicated teams that are just focused on this execution period in the year to make sure that they win. Yeah, I think that's very wise. Shoppers are cherry picking value. It's a tough economic climate. We've heard that from pretty much all of our participants today. Discounts need to be authentic though, and substantial in order to attract shoppers. And buy now, pay later is, I think, back and back in a vengeance. Orange definitely is the new black in this account. Orange is the colour of Alibaba, and China really is still the market to look for innovation. I know there's been a lot of press activity in terms of depressed China sales, and maybe the engine has gone out of China, but certainly in terms of innovation within retail, China is the market to look at, especially for AI, virtual influencers and shopper entertainment. And I think it's really worth brands experimenting in Asia first and then bringing those learnings back into the Western markets. And we've seen quite a lot of that this year, haven't we? Yeah, and I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on other retailers. So I think what we were hearing from Karina and LATAM, being very aware of the competition that is coming from a just new field of retailers that we weren't necessarily competing with before. Social scored gold. So whilst physical retail came back, e-commerce really soared, and social led the way. TikTok, as we've heard, Amazon Inspire. So there's still a lot to play for in that space, and really do need to be part of your plans for 2024. And I know it's might be difficult to even conceive of it, but planning for 2024 starts in January, doesn't it, Beth Ann? Absolutely. And green is becoming a focus. Now, I think it's still debatable as to how much the consumer really is buying purely on a sustainability agenda, but we've certainly seen, and quite rightly too, both retailers and manufacturers doing everything that they can do in order to try and reduce their environmental impact over the Black Friday period. I think adding a thematic to that, David, would be also the resale sites or brands owning their own resale and recycling. So I think that's an important piece too. I saw a lot of people buying secondhand, but secondhand luxury, for instance, during this time period.
Well, that's it. Thanks very much. That's it for our wrap up. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us. Beth-Anne, thank you very much indeed for your co-hosting, and we thank all of our guests as well. You saw across the screen a little bit earlier the URL for our resource site. We're going to try and make that as live as possible as new information, new results, new interesting things become available over the course of the next month or so, and in particular, I suppose, as retailers and brands results get published in the January and February period. But from Beth-Anne in New York and from me in London, it's been a great pleasure having you with us. Thanks very much, and have a great holiday period.